What happens when one of country music's biggest stars walks into the lion's den of daytime television? It only took 41 seconds for Joy Behar to turn what should have been a friendly interview into an all-out war that would leave everyone in the studio speechless and send Blake Shelton storming off the set in disgust. Before we dive into this explosive clash, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about how this whole situation went down. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every single word of this unbelievable confrontation. Blake Shelton walked onto the View set that morning with his usual charm and that signature Oklahoma smile. He was there to promote his latest album and talk about his time on The Voice. The audience was excited, the cameras were rolling, and everything seemed perfect for what should have been a typical celebrity interview. Whoopi Goldberg started things off nice and easy, asking Blake about his new music and his experience coaching on The Voice. Blake was relaxed, cracking jokes and making the audience laugh. Even Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes seemed to be enjoying the conversation, asking him about his favorite moments from the show and his upcoming tour dates. But then Joy Behar decided to take things in a completely different direction. "So Blake," Joy said, leaning forward in her chair with that look in her eyes that regular viewers know means trouble is coming, "I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me. Don't you think it's a little hypocritical for someone like you to be coaching people on a singing competition?" Blake's smile faltered just a bit, clearly caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. "I'm sorry, what do you mean by that, Joy?" "Well," Joy continued, her voice getting sharper, "you're from Oklahoma, right? A small-town guy who probably never even left his hometown until he got famous. How can someone with such a limited worldview really understand what it takes to connect with audiences from all walks of life?" The studio got quiet. You could feel the tension building as Blake tried to process what he just heard. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat, and Sarah looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. "I'm not sure I follow," Blake said, his voice still calm, but you could hear the edge creeping in. "Are you saying that because I'm from a small town, I can't relate to people or understand music?" Joy wasn't backing down. If anything, she was doubling down on her attack. "I'm saying that maybe someone who's never experienced real diversity, never lived in a big city, never been exposed to different cultures, might not be the best person to judge what makes a good performer." Blake's jaw tightened. This wasn't just a random question anymore. This was a direct insult to everything he'd worked for and where he came from. "Joy, I've been in this business for over 20 years, Blake said, his voice steady, but you could tell he was fighting to keep his cool. "I've worked with artists from every background you can imagine. I've traveled all over the world, performed for millions of people from every walk of life. I think my track record speaks for itself." But Joy wasn't done. She had that smug look on her face like she was about to deliver the knockout punch. "Your track record?" Joy laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was the kind of laugh that cuts right through you. "Blake, let's be honest here. Most of your success comes from singing about trucks, beer, and small-town life. That's not exactly what I'd call sophisticated artistry. How does that qualify you to judge real talent?" The audience gasped. Even some of the crew members behind the cameras looked shocked. This had gone way beyond a tough interview question. Joy had just dismissed Blake's entire career as unsophisticated and questioned his credibility as an artist. Blake sat back in his chair, and for a moment, nobody said anything. You could practically hear a pin drop in that studio. Whoopi looked like she wanted to jump in and change the subject, but before she could say anything, Blake leaned forward. "You know what, Joy?" Blake said, his voice calm but with steel underneath it. "I've been nothing but respectful since I walked in here. I came on this show to talk about my music and have a good time with you ladies. But apparently, you've got some kind of problem with people like me." "People like you?" Joy shot back, raising her eyebrows like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You tell me," Blake replied. "You're the one who seems to think that because I'm from Oklahoma, because I sing country music, because I come from a small town, that somehow makes me less qualified or less sophisticated than you are." Joy's face was getting red now. She clearly hadn't expected Blake to push back this hard. "I never said anything about being sophisticated," Joy said, but her voice was getting defensive. "I'm just questioning whether someone with your background really has the range to understand what it takes to succeed in today's music industry." "My background?" Blake's voice was getting louder now, and you could tell his patience was wearing thin. "What exactly is wrong with my background, Joy? What's wrong with being from a small town? What's wrong with singing about things that real people care about?" The other hosts were looking back and forth like they were watching a tennis match, but nobody knew how to stop this runaway train. Sarah tried to jump in with a question about Blake's charity work. but Joy cut her right off. "There's nothing wrong with it," Joy said. But the way she said it made it clear she thought there was plenty wrong with it. "I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, you should acknowledge that your perspective is pretty limited compared to those of us who've lived in the real world." That's when Blake's calm finally cracked. "The real world?" Blake stood up from his chair, his voice booming across the studio. "Are you kidding me right now? You think sitting behind this desk in New York City, talking about other people's lives, makes you more qualified to judge what's real than someone who actually lived it?" Joy's eyes went wide. She clearly wasn't expecting Blake to get up from his chair, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she looked a little uncertain. "Blake, please sit down," Whoopi said, trying to regain control of the situation. "Let's just take a breath here. And—" "No, Whoopi," Blake said, holding up his hand but keeping his eyes locked on Joy. "I think Joy here needs to explain what she means by the real world, because last time I checked, working on a farm, supporting your family, serving your country, building communities, that's pretty real, but apparently, that doesn't count in Joy's version of reality." Joy recovered quickly, sitting up straighter in her chair, with that defiant look she gets when she thinks she's winning an argument. "Of course those things matter," Joy said, but her tone suggested she didn't really believe it. "But Blake, you have to admit that your experiences are pretty narrow. You've lived in one part of the country your whole life. You sing one type of music. You appeal to one demographic. How does that give you the broad perspective needed to judge diverse talent?" Blake laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh you make when someone says something so ridiculous you can't believe they're serious. "One demographic?" Blake shook his head. "Joy, do you have any idea how diverse country music fans are? Do you know how many different kinds of people come to my concerts? Farmers, teachers, doctors, military families, small business owners, factory workers, students, people from every race, every background, every walk of life you can imagine. But they're all from red states, right?" Joy shot back with a smirk. "They all think the same way, vote the same way, believe the same things. That's not real diversity, Blake. That's just a bunch of people who agree with each other." The studio fell silent again. Even the camera operators looked uncomfortable. Joy had just dismissed millions of Americans as basically all the same person, and everyone in that room knew she'd crossed a line. Blake stared at her for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet but intense. "You know what, Joy? I feel sorry for you. I really do. You sit up here in your bubble, surrounded by people who tell you how smart and enlightened you are, and you actually believe that you understand America better than the people who live in it." "I understand plenty," Joy said, her voice getting sharper. "I understand that your kind of entertainment appeals to people who don't want to be challenged, who want to stay comfortable in their little worlds without having to think about the bigger picture." "My kind of entertainment?" Blake's voice was getting dangerous now. "What exactly is my kind of entertainment, Joy?" Sarah Haynes tried to jump in again. "Maybe we should." But Joy wasn't backing down. She was doubling down, and everyone could see this was about to get much worse. "Music that doesn't challenge anyone," Joy said, waving her hand dismissively. "Songs about drinking beer and driving trucks and loving America. It's all very safe, very predictable. It doesn't push boundaries or make people think about difficult issues." Blake took a step closer to the desk, and you could see the anger building in his face. "So music about working hard, taking care of your family, serving your country, loving where you come from, that's not challenging? That's not important? Songs about real people dealing with real problems, that's not worth anything?" "It's fine for what it is," Joy said with a shrug. "But let's not pretend it's on the same level as artists who actually have something important to say about the world." That's when Sunny Hostin finally decided to speak up, and she looked genuinely shocked. "Joy, I think you're being really unfair here," Sunny said. "Blake has written and performed songs about loss, about heartbreak, about social issues. His music has helped people through difficult times. That sounds pretty important to me." But Joy wasn't listening to Sunny. She was focused on Blake like a predator who'd found wounded prey. "Has it though?" Joy asked. "Or does it just tell people what they already believe so they don't have to question anything? Does it actually help people grow, or does it just keep them comfortable in their prejudices?" Blake's hands were clenched into fists now, and his face was getting red. "Prejudices?" Blake's voice was barely controlled. "What prejudices are you talking about, Joy?" Joy leaned back in her chair with that satisfied look she gets when she thinks she's about to make her big point. "Come on, Blake. We both know what kind of audience you're playing to. We both know what they really think about people who are different from them. Your music might not say it directly, but it certainly doesn't challenge those attitudes either." The studio was dead silent now. Joy had just accused Blake's fans of being prejudiced, and by extension, suggested that Blake himself was okay with that. It was the kind of accusation that could end careers and destroy relationships. Blake stood there for a moment, staring at Joy like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. When he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear him. "You don't know anything about me," Blake said. "You don't know anything about my fans. You don't know anything about the people I come from. But you're sitting here making judgments about millions of people you've never met, never talked to, never even tried to understand." "I understand enough," Joy said, clearly feeling like she was winning this fight. "I understand that your success depends on telling a certain kind of person exactly what they want to hear. And that's fine, Blake. There's nothing wrong with giving people what they want. Just don't pretend it's something more than it is." Blake's jaw was working like he was trying to hold back words that he knew he shouldn't say. Whoopi was looking back and forth between them, like she was watching a car accident happen in slow motion. "You want to know what I pretend?" Blake finally said, his voice getting louder again. "I pretend that people like you might actually care about bringing this country together instead of dividing it. I pretend that maybe, just maybe, someone in your position might try to understand people instead of judging them. But clearly, I was wrong." Joy's face was getting redder now, and her voice was rising to match Blake's. "I'm not dividing anything," Joy said. "I'm just telling the truth. And the truth is that your brand of entertainment caters to people who don't want to face reality." "Reality?" Blake laughed again, but this time it was pure anger. "You want to talk about reality, Joy? Here's some reality for you. Reality is a single mother in Tennessee working 2 jobs to feed her kids who finds comfort in a song about not giving up. Reality is a veteran in Texas dealing with PTSD who connects with music about coming home. Reality is a farmer in Iowa who's about to lose everything but gets strength from a song about perseverance. That's reality, Joy. That's who you just insulted." Joy's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time since this whole confrontation started, she looked genuinely taken aback by the passion in Blake's voice. "Those people you just dismissed as prejudiced and close-minded?" Blake continued, his voice getting stronger with every word. "They're teachers, nurses, firefighters, police officers, construction workers, small business owners. They're the people who keep this country running while you sit up here in your tower, making judgments about lives you've never lived." Whoopi tried one more time to regain control. "Blake, I think we all need to just—" "No, Whoopi," Blake said, turning to look at her. "I'm not done. Joy here thinks she can attack me, attack my music, attack my fans, and I'm just supposed to sit here and smile about it because I'm on her show. Well, I've got news for you. I don't need this. I don't need to be here, and I sure don't need to listen to someone who's never been outside Manhattan tell me that the people I grew up with aren't sophisticated enough for her taste." Joy finally found her voice again, and she was furious. "I never said they weren't sophisticated," Joy snapped. "I said your music isn't sophisticated. There's a difference, Blake. Maybe if you weren't so defensive, you could hear what I'm actually saying." Blake turned back to Joy, and his voice was ice cold. "Oh, I heard exactly what you said. You said my music appeals to people who don't want to be challenged. You said it keeps people comfortable in their prejudices. You said my fans all think the same way and vote the same way, like they're some kind of hive mind. You dismissed an entire genre of music and everyone who loves it as unsophisticated. Did I miss anything?" Joy's face was bright red now, and she was practically yelling. "You're twisting my words," Joy said. "I was making a legitimate point about artistic merit and cultural impact. Just because you don't like hearing criticism doesn't mean it's an attack." "Criticism?" Blake laughed, and this time it was full of disbelief. "You call questioning my qualifications because of where I was born criticism? You call dismissing my entire career as unsophisticated criticism? You call suggesting that millions of Americans are prejudiced because they like my music criticism?" Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Sunny Hostin was shaking her head like she couldn't believe what she was watching. Even Whoopi looked completely lost. "I stand by everything I said," Joy declared, crossing her arms. "Maybe it's time someone told you the truth about what your music really represents in this country." Blake stared at her for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet but absolutely deadly. "You want to know what my music represents, Joy? It represents people who work hard for everything they have. It represents people who love their families, their communities, their country. It represents people who don't think they're better than everyone else just because they live in a big city or have a college degree." Joy scoffed. "Oh, please, Blake, don't give me that humble working-class hero routine. You're a multi-millionaire celebrity just like the rest of us. You're right, Blake said, nodding slowly. I am successful. I've been blessed beyond my wildest dreams, but I never forgot where I came from, and I never looked down on the people who supported me along the way. Can you say the same thing? Joy's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been sitting here for the last 10 minutes acting like you're better than half the country, Blake said. It means you think your opinions matter more than everyone else's because you have a platform. It means you become exactly the kind of person that makes regular Americans feel like their voices don't matter. That's ridiculous, Joy shot back. I'm fighting for progress, for equality, for justice. I'm trying to challenge people to think beyond their narrow worldviews. Blake shook his head. No, Joy, you're not challenging anyone. You're lecturing them. You're talking down to them. You're telling them that their way of life, their values, their music, their culture, none of it measures up to your standards. And then you wonder why this country feels so divided. Whoopi finally managed to get a word in. Okay, I think we need to take a commercial break. And no, Blake said, holding up his hand again. I'm done here. I came on this show as a guest, and I've been treated with nothing but disrespect. Joy, you can think whatever you want about me, my music, and my fans, but I'm not going to sit here and let you insult good people who've never done anything to you. Joy stood up too, her chair scraping against the floor. Fine, Blake, run back to your safe space where everyone agrees with you. But don't pretend this is about respect. This is about you not being able to handle having your worldview challenged. Blake looked at her with something that might have been pity. My worldview? Blake said softly. Joy, my worldview is that people are basically good, regardless of where they come from or what they believe. My worldview is that music should bring people together, not divide them. My worldview is that respect goes both ways. Apparently, that's not sophisticated enough for you. He started walking toward the edge of the set, but Joy wasn't done. That's right. Walk away, Joy called after him. Just like everyone else who can't defend their positions when they're actually questioned. Blake stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around slowly, and everyone in that studio knew that Joy had just made a terrible mistake. Defend my positions? Blake's voice was dangerous now. Lady, I don't have to defend anything to you. My positions are defended every night by the thousands of people who come to my shows. They're defended by the millions of people who buy my records. They're defended by the lives that have been changed and the hearts that have been touched by music you think is beneath you. He walked back toward the desk, and Joy actually took a step back. You want to know what I can't defend? Blake continued. I can't defend sitting here while you attack people who can't fight back. I can't defend pretending that your opinions are more important than theirs. And I can't defend wasting another second of my life trying to have a reasonable conversation with someone who's already made up her mind about who I am and where I come from. Blake looked around at the other hosts one more time. Ladies, it's been real. Joy, good luck with your show. I hope someday you figure out that looking down on people isn't the same thing as lifting them up. And with that, Blake Shelton walked off the View set, leaving Joy Behar standing there speechless while the cameras kept rolling and the studio audience sat in stunned silence, having just witnessed one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history.